Okay, hi guys. We're going to do some review before Wednesday's test. And the ones down here, the print was so small with the size I had to have it so you could see the whole diagram. So I just wrote it out, what each one of them says over there in a little bit larger print. Okay, on this it says that we are supposed to select all of the choices that represent this diagram. Now we can see here that our diagram is split into two different blocks. Okay, it says the area of each small rectangle is 1/4 by 1/5 each. So if I look at all of my little boxes and I count them, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I know that if I multiply 1/4 times 1/5, then I get 1/20. And when I just counted them up, yeah, there were 20 of them in this one large area on this side. So yeah, each one would be 1/20. So yes, A does represent this graph. Choice B, the shaded area is 21 square units. Well, all I have to do on that is count how many are shaded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So yeah, the shaded is 21 square units. Choice C, the shaded area is 3/4 times 7/5 square units. Now this one is just, it's a little bit harder, but let's just think about this for a minute. It says 3/4. If I look up here at my diagram and I look at it in this direction, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 of those is shaded. So yeah, the shaded area on this side is 3/4. And then if I look at it this way, each one of these little things, if I just count this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, each one in this shaded area would be 1/5 in the shaded area. Now, if I count them, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So yeah, the shaded area is 7/5. And then I know that area means length times width. So if area equals length times width, we have 3/4 times 7/5. So yes, C, the shaded area is 3/4 times 7/5. Okay, the shaded area is 20 over 21 square units. Well, we've already written out the problem for it, so let's just go ahead and solve it. 3 times 7 is 21. 4 times 5 is 20. But when we look at this choice, it says the shaded area is 20 over 21. Well, it's not, is it? So D isn't work. And then the very next one says the shaded area is 21 over 20. Well, yeah, we just worked that out, so we know that is true. So all of the choices except for D would go with this diagram. All right, next one. Now on the rest of them, it's gonna I can zoom in closer because you don't have to see so much of the diagram as you go. Let me get that in now where everyone can see. All right, again, it says select all of the expressions that represent the shaded amount of the rectangle. On this one, it gives me the choice 1/3 plus 1/5. Now we know in math that a plus sign means and. So 1/3 and 1/5. Well, if I look up here, each of these is a fifth, and then each one inside is 1/3 of a fifth, but it says that I have 1/3 and 1/5 shaded, and that's not true. I only have 1/4 of 1/5 shaded. On the next one, it says 1/5 divided by 3. Well, if I look up here, we said that each one of these would represent 1/5. And on this fifth, yeah, it's divided by 1, 2, 3 sections. So yes, B does represent the diagram of the shaded amount. On the next one, it has 1/3 times 1/5. And if we think about that in English terms, we know that multiply means of in math. So it's saying that we have 1/3 of 1/5 shaded. And if we look up here, here's 1/5, and the shaded is 1/3 of that. So 1/3 of 1/5 is shaded. Yes, that is true. 1/3 of the diagram is shaded. 1/3. No, because if I split this diagram into thirds, this would be about 1/3 of the diagram being shaded. And then the last one says 1/7. Well, nowhere up here is a seventh, 1/7 being represented, so no, E does not represent. So the only two in this one that do represent is 1/5 divided by 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes. 1/3 of 1/5. Yes. Okay, now on this one, it says write a multiplication expression to represent the area of the shaded region. So if it's asking me about area, I know that that means length times width. And it's asking me about the shaded area. So if I look at my length, the shaded area is 1, 2 thirds. 2 out of the 3 of my length is shaded. And if I look at my width, I have 1, 2, 3 fourths. 3 out of the 4 that are shaded. So here is a representation, a multiplication expression representing the area. Now if I went ahead and solved this out, I would have 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 4 is 12, and I know that I can divide each of them by 6 to simplify. So 6 divided by 6 is 1, 12 divided by 6 is 1/2. And since we are doing area, it would be units squared. Okay, next one. Now there was a typo in the book. This should be a 1, not an 11. So that's 1/4. 440 meters is 1/4 of the way around the racetrack. How far is it around the whole racetrack? And explain your reasoning. Okay, I have 440 meters that has been divided by fourths. So if I take my 440 and I place it over a 1, then I have a basic division of fractions problem. And we always just slide the first fraction on over. And on the second fraction, we flip or do the reciprocal. And then we multiply. And if you can't do it in your head, don't waste time trying. Go to the side and work it out by stacking. So we have 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 4 is 16 plus the 1 we carried. So we have 1,760 over 1, which is equivalent to 1,760. Now, another way that you could explain your reasoning to me is you could draw a track. And we know that that track was divided in fourths. So each fourth is 440 meters. And if I add all my 440s together, or I say I have 440 4 times, I'm still going to come up with 1,760. So either way you want to show it on test is fine. You can do the division expression to show, or you can draw out your diagram to show. Either way is fine. And I don't have corona, just the frog in my throat. I'm good. All right, each tile is 3/2 feet by 3/2 feet. There are 10 tiles on the bathroom floor. What is the area covered by the tiles? Well, the first thing we need to remember that anytime we're dealing in area, we're talking about length times width. And to get us started, we just need to know how much area does each tile cover. And it told us that the length for each tile is 3/2, and the width for each tile is 3/2. So if we multiply straight across, 3 times 3 is 9, 2 times 2 is 4. So the area for each tile is 9/4. And it says that we had 10 tiles. So we have 9/4 10 times. And if we look at this as just multiplying fractions, we would make that a fraction by putting it over 1. And then we would multiply straight across. 9 times 10 is 90. 4 times 1 is 4. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. This is the correct fraction, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to say the area of tiles is 90/4. So we can just go to the side and do the math and divide top to bottom, just like you would say it. 90 divided by 4, 90 divided by 4. 4 goes into 9 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8, and then we subtract. 9 minus 8 is 1, and then we have to bring down our 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. Then we subtract, and we're left with a remainder of 2. So this is equivalent to 22 whole feet and 2/4, because we had 2 left over and we were dealing in fourths. So the area of all 10 tiles is 22 2/4, which we also know that they're each divisible by 2. So if we simplified, it wouldn't affect our whole number. So we still have 22. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So now it's easier to understand. Instead of saying the tiles covered an area of 90/4, they covered an area of 22 1/2 feet, because we were dealing in feet, and for full credit on test, we're dealing in area, so make sure it is square units. So make sure you put your little 2 up there. Okay, fill in the blank to make each equation correct. So on this, we're just solving, just to make sure you can see the problem. Okay, 3 times 2 is 6. 12 times 5 is 60. Now, I know that both of these are divisible by 6. So I have 6 minus 6 is 1. 60 minus 6, excuse me, not minus, 6 divided by 6 is 1. 60 divided by 6 is 10. So the final simplified answer is 1/10. On the second one, it gave us 8/6 times 10/11. If we multiply straight across, we have 8 times 10 is 80. 6 times 11 is 66. When we're left with an improper fraction, we should go to the side and divide. So we have 80, just like we would read it from top to bottom. 80 divided by 66. Well, we know 66 won't go into 8, so we'll placeholder 0 there. But 66 will go into 80, and it will go 1 time. 1 times 66 is 66, and then we subtract. I can't take 6 from 0, so I'm going to have to borrow. 10 minus 6 is 4. 7 minus 6 is 1. 66 won't go into 14, and there's nothing else to bring down, so I have a remainder of 14. Okay, so we know that we have one whole one. We had 14 left over, and we were dealing with 66. Okay, now we always want to try to get our answer in simplest form. Anytime you have something that ends in 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0, we know that they're divisible by 2 because that means they're even numbers. It won't affect my whole number. I still have one whole one. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 66 divided by 2 is 33. There's not any numbers that we can divide 7 and 33 by to get a 0 remainder, so this is in simplest form. Okay, the next one, they gave us 7 3/5 times 2/5. Now we know that the first thing we have to do is turn this mixed number into an improper fraction. We would multiply diagonally, so 5 times 7 is 35, and then we add the numerator. So 5 times 7 is 35, plus 3 is 38. And we're still dealing with fifths. And we bring this one on over. Okay, now we multiply straight across. 38 times 2. If you can't do that in your head, don't waste time. Just go to the side. 38 times 2. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 3 is 6. Plus the 1 is 76. And 5 times 5 is 25. Now, we need to turn that into a mixed number, and we would divide top to bottom just like we say it. 76 divided by 25. We know it won't go into 7, so we'll placeholder 0. Anytime you're dealing with something where you're dividing by 25, think of it like quarters. If I had quarters, they're each 25 cents. And if I had 3 quarters, I would have 75 cents. So I know that 25 will go into 76 3 times. 3 times 25, just like 3 times my quarters. I have 3 quarters, so that would give me 75. 6 minus 5 is 1, so I have a remainder of 1. So for my final answer over here, I have 3 whole ones. I had 1 left over, and we were dealing in 25ths. So my final answer is 3 and 1/25. Okay, the next one. An apple weighs a ½ pound. Diego cuts the apple into 4 pieces. How many pounds does each piece of the apple weigh? So we know that his apple weighs a ½ pound. And then he cut that apple, or split that apple, or divided that apple into 4 pieces. So he took his ½ pound and divided it by 4. Anytime we have a whole number, we look at it like it's a fraction by putting it over 1. When we're dividing our fractions, we slide over the first fraction, we flip or get the reciprocal of the second fraction, and then we multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 4 is 8. And that makes sense that I came out with a small fraction because the apple only weighed a ½ pound. So I knew there was no way I was going to get a whole number. So if I took that ½ pound apple and divided it or split it into 4, each piece would be 1/8 of a pound. A container holds 4/5 liters of water. During a hike, Jada drank 2/3 of the water. How much water did Jada drink? Explain your reasoning. Okay, if I'm talking through this in my head, I know that Jada drank 2/3 of the water. And I also know how much was the water. So she drank 2/3 of 4/5 because that's how much the water was. So 2/3 of 4/5. And then I know that English to Mathlish, of means multiply. So 2/3 of 4/5, I would have 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 5 is 15. There's no number that I could use to divide both of them by and get a 0 remainder, so this is in simplest form. So Jada drank 8/15 of the water. Okay, and lastly, it just asks us to solve each expression. So we have 2 divided by 1/5. We know to make the whole number a fraction also by placing it over 1. When we're dividing fractions, we slide over our first fraction. We flip or get the reciprocal of the second fraction, and then we multiply. So we have 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times